Hello, vinyl community. Jeff's back. Feels like it's been forever since I've done a video, and I'll tell you why. Well, it's only been about a week. I know with my last video, I was hoping I'd get another one done last week, but here's the situation. For those of you all not familiar with the weather that's happened recently on the East Coast here in America, if you're not watching from afar, Hurricane Florence came through, blew through North Carolina. It actually was coming towards us, missed us, it went below. However, it went right through my in-laws' neighborhood, and they got wiped out pretty good. So we've been kind of monitoring progress there. They're, kind of getting up there in years, and so needed help. And there's not a lot we can do because we're like over 3 hours away. But I was hoping to make a video last Wednesday before I went out of town on Thursday for a conference, and but we got a call from them. They were doing pretty bad, had some problems. So we got off work a little early. The wife and I jumped in the car and made the 3-hour trek down there. Checked on them to make sure they were doing okay. Got them a phone that they could use to contact us because they had no phone service and didn't have a cell phone that was working. And then got back in the car half an hour later and drove back. So we did a almost 6.5, almost 7-hour round trip in one day just to go down there and check on them, see how they were doing. Tried to bring them back with us. They wouldn't come because they had some things arranged. So that kind of killed my entire Wednesday night. I had to come straight back because Thursday morning I had to get on a plane, and Thursday morning my wife had to be at work. So we got back home about 1 o'clock in the morning and got up and did everything. So I didn't get to do a video, so sorry if you missed me. Anyway, so getting back in the swing of things, we're still running back and forth. We did have to go back, and we do have my mother-in-law here, and we're probably going to have to go back this weekend down there and help out a little. So for now, I want to do a video real quick, and I thought, well, there's a lot of different threads out there. A lot of them I'd like to respond to, but right now things are kind of chaotic. So I wanted to do something quick and easy. I want to do something, I had mentioned maybe doing an artist spotlight, so that's what I'm going to do because I have all these things on hand right here in front of me. Tonight's artist spotlight is for the famous Christian rock band Stryper. Now, Stryper, back in the day, 1984, up until that point, I'd mainly listened. I was brought up in the church. Have always considered myself to be a Christian, but never found Christian music to be of any interest. Petra was always tried to pull it off on me, and it never worked. I'm like, this is nothing like what I'm listening to when it comes to Van Halen, Motley Crue, Kiss, all that stuff. 1984, a little band called Stryper came out. An album called The Yellow and Black Attack. Now, let me open a different one because that one's got a seal on it. I saw this album in the record store. Didn't know anything about it. It was in the independent bin. Picked it up and noticed that it says right here on the top line, special thanks to number one Jesus Christ, the boss man. Yeah, the boss man. So I looked at the band. I said, hey, they look pretty cool. They got the look, kind of stuff I like. But then I saw that and I thought, oh, it's going to be some more silly Christian rock. So I ignored it. Never bought it. Didn't pick it up. Went my way. That same year, I went in the military, joined the military, got shipped out, etc., etc. Once I got stationed down there later in 84, I don't know. I started, now I have a full-time job. I'm in the military making money, started buying a lot of albums. I went ahead and picked it up. And gotta say, I was blown away. I wore that album out. It was amazing. It was cutting edge, and everybody knows this. Stryper was cutting edge. They brought Christian metal to the forefront. Anyway, been a favorite ever since then. I want to run down what I've got. I've got the majority of them on vinyl, and I'll show some CDs, which make up the rest, and some other things. Well, I'll show these. Nothing major here. If you know anything about Stryper, if you've ever seen them in concert, one thing they do is they come out during the middle and they start checking out Bibles. So I've got some of the Bibles over the years of seeing them. This one's autographed, and I can't remember by who. But so they throw out their little New Testament Bibles. Basically, it's just a New Testament Bible, and then they stick a Stryper sticker on it, and they throw it on the audience. So I got one here with an autograph. I believe, I don't know who that was. I don't think it's Michael Sweet, because it seems like every time I've met the band backstage, we rarely ever meet Michael. It's always the other guys. Anyway, so I've got a couple of them. This is a couple different stickers. These are all about the same, so I got 5 total. This is the oldest one, and this is probably one I got from back in the 80s when the first time I saw them. So the sticker's a little different design than all the rest of them. And then this one is most likely from the 2003 tour. When they got back together and did a 7-week tour, they came here to Virginia when I was here and I saw them. So anyway, where do we start with Stryper? Stryper started off, and then they have a demo. They used to be called Rock's Regime, and they released this not too long ago, the Rock's Regime demo, even though it says Stryper all over it. And a lot of these songs, most all these songs made it to the first album. One or two were in a slightly different mode, different version. My Love I Always Show was kind of a rock version, whereas on the album it came out on it trying to be a ballad. And then there's a drum solo in there too. Anyway, so then first album come out now. Come back here. Yellow and Black Attack. Now, it was released originally on yellow vinyl and black vinyl. So this is the yellow, very nice and pretty. And when it was originally released, for those of you who don't know, it was cropped incorrectly. So we see here there's a hand, there's a finger sticking up, and then there's rockets. Each one of the rockets has initials of the band member. Michael Sweet, Oz Fox, Tim Gaines, except this one. It says 777. And the hand is cut off. So this was the first pressing, cropped incorrectly. Things are zoomed in too much. It came out on yellow, and it came out on black. This is the black version. These are Enigma records. Again, the cropping is incorrect. This is the one I bought. I don't have many albums that exist from my original days, but this is one of the ones I did. Back when I got rid of all my records, I kept the ones that had not been out on CD at the time. This one was not out on CD. All the rest of them were. I kept this album, so it's still been in my small vinyl collection all along. This is the original one I bought in 1984, and this is the one that's cropped incorrectly. It wasn't too long ago, actually, just a couple months ago, that I finally found one. It's on black vinyl too. It was reprinted a second time, same year or a couple months later. And see, this is the way it's supposed to be. So you see this rocket has RS for Robert Sweet. You see the full hand. Everything's a little smaller so you can see more. This is the second pressing back in the same day with the fixed cropping and on black vinyl only. Then, technically the band went out and released their, and here's the CD version of it, but I'll wait for a second. Then their second album came out, Soldiers Under Command, so that gained them a little popularity, so they went back and reissued the first album on this interesting cutout version, and it's on blue vinyl. And it was remastered, and two of the songs, the one from this album that was missing, was added to it, but it was a very ballad version versus the My Love Always Show, the rock version. And then they added their Reason for the Season, which is kind of their Christmas tune. Remastered, highly compressed. Most people don't really like it. Even Michael Sweet told me he's not a big fan. Overly done. They really kind of ruined it. Most everybody prefers the original release. It's just raw. It's got a fatness to it because it sounds really nice and analog. When they released it on CD, they released the remastered version. So pretty much the only way you can get the original version on CD is in Japan. And I'm telling you, nowadays, you find one, you're going to pay $400 or $500 for it. So I have a copy digitally of it. It sounds amazing. It's really high quality Japanese sound. Anyway, so the second album they came out with, they started putting out CDs first. Not CDs, singles. They came out with Reason for the Season, the single. It's got that, and it's got Winter Wonderland, an amazingly cute hard rock version of the classic Christmas tune Winter Wonderland. There's various versions of this. I have two picture discs of this. It's a little picture disc that's got this picture on it, but I must not have pulled it down because I'm not seeing it here. This came out, I remember buying this before the second album came out, was blown away. And then they had a bunch of singles that came out before the second album, but I don't have any of those because I didn't buy any singles. Then we come out with Soldiers Under Command. Caused a big uproar in the Christian market because you got this Christian band standing in front of a van holding guns. Very army-like, but it's very mean-looking. So this came out on white vinyl and black. I had the black for quite a while, but just recently ran across a copy of this in white. I'm not the type that buys multiple copies of an album to collect the different versions, but I did with Stryper because I found these like a couple months ago. So I went ahead and grabbed the white vinyl one, but I already owned the regular black vinyl one. So So Stryper, I made an exception and bought, and there's multiple versions. I've seen guys that have 5 or 6 versions. Oh, I got the overseas version. I got this seas over that version, that version. Anyway, the CD came out for that. That's the original CD I bought back in the day too. Most all of these are. All right, then they came out with what is probably what most people consider to be their biggest pinnacle, their biggest hits. And that is To Hell with the Devil. And again, this one caused a stir in the Christian market because you got these muscle-bound, semi-naked angels pulling this satanic being down by chains and casting him into hell. It's just a series of weird, scenes that they don't like. So I don't have the other version, but there is a Christian version that was in the Christian market. Totally black cover, and it just has this logo, To Hell with the Devil, in big red letters. Very boring. This is a gatefold. It's on black vinyl. I don't recall if there was any other version to that, but that's the one I've got. Well, aside from the picture disc version, so I do have the picture disc. Came with the giant fold-out poster. The cover itself was getting kind of dirty. I need to really clean it. It had a sticker right here. The hype sticker has, left a little residue. There was a sticker over here that's kind of left some residue. But the disc itself is in really good condition, and the poster's in really good condition. So, here's the hype sticker. It's loose, but it's on the back. So I do have the picture disc of this. I'm not a huge picture disc fan, just sound quality, but again, I'm collecting it. Another picture disc, my love, always there for you. Another single from To Hell with the Devil. These are the songs that when MTV was big, that they became huge. Always There for You, Free, songs like that. So these are the songs that most people know when they think of Stryper. Have the CD version of that too. Now the CD version, I think for the longest time was just a black cover, but Michael Sweet released this later, and he added the bonus track Winter Wonderland on here. This is the limited edition. So this came out 20 years ago. I got it from the Michael Sweet website. Always There for You, a single. I don't have a lot of these singles, but you pick them up when you see them. It's got an interview with Robert Sweet on it. Next up came In God We Trust. Now, most people don't like this album, only because this album and To Hell with the Devil this was back in the days when digital was becoming a big thing, and analog was kind of, as far as the sound, the way they mix it and everything. This album is so digital sounding, so over polished, so clean, so it loses a lot of warmth. Now, I love this album. I think it's a great album. This album and To Hell with the Devil, to me, when To Hell with the Devil came out, they had become, in my mind, very poppy. It's a very commercial album. It's got one or two hard rocking songs, but the first two albums were very, a little more edgy. To Hell with the Devil came out, it was a little more poppy, and of course that sent them over, made them a huge hit, sent them over the mark as far as, that's what they were shooting for, and the label was probably pushing them to do that. They became very commercial, and so it was kind of a disappointment, but of course over time it grows on you. This album is even more commercial, but I don't know, I love these songs. They're squeaky clean, they're very, 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 but they're very sing-along, and some of this, they've got a couple of songs on here, just like always, that are really, hard rocking. Everybody gives a slack over Robert because he looks like he's a pinup girl. They're like, what is this guy doing with all this makeup with his hair? Anyway, they used to make fun of that, the Robert Sweet pose. Anyway, then the band started to go away from that squeaky clean. I got the CD of that too. Started to kind of shake that squeaky clean image. They, I guess there was some turmoil in the band, and the band wanted to kind of change directions and change their image. And I don't know why exactly they did it. You can read about it in Michael's book. There was a lot of issues in the band. There was some inner turmoil, and what turned out to be the last album with singer Michael Sweet on it, at least for the time, was their album Against the Law, 1991. They changed their look. The yellow and black bumblebee looking suits that they wear on all the albums, they went away with, and everything became black and blue stripes. It was a really cool image. The album is very much lyrically less blatantly Christian. But and this is a song, and I talked to Michael a couple months ago for an interview I did for a magazine, and I asked him, "Well, why don't you ever play any of these songs live?" And they don't like this album. He said it's total departure from the Stryper sound, and he said it's something we did, and we probably should have done it, and it was a departure to what made us great, from what made us great, and they don't really pay any attention to it now. But ask anybody, almost anybody, and they would tell you that this is their favorite Stryper album. It's different, it's heavier, it's got all the catches and the hooks and the sing-alongs. It's an amazing album, but in light of all the catalog of Stryper albums, this is the least Stryper-like album, and that's why Stryper doesn't play it, because it doesn't have the Stryper sound. It's a totally different sound, totally different look. They were kind of going for more edgy, trying to go a little more, I guess, less Christian and more secular. The album is hard to find vinyl-wise. This is a Spanish copy. Seems like that's the most popular way to get it. Anyway, and so it's a great album. It's just not a great Stryper album if you compare it to Stryper. I have the CD too. You know, there's a bunch of different versions of the CD, and I forget what they all are, but there's the blue cover, then there's one that's got kind of more of an orangey brown tint to it. There's a CD that's got the logo, and then there's a CD without the logo that has a blue thumbprint. Different variations. This is the original one I bought back in the day when they came out. I don't know, but it's got they got rid of the logo, and it's on here. I'm just seeing that that's a cutout. Maybe this is not the one I bought originally. Maybe I bought this because the CD was different. I don't know. That's weird. Michael Sweet left. They acquired Dale Thompson of Bride fame. He filled in on vocals, and that didn't last very long. And as far as I know, there's not any. I've seen one picture of him wearing blue and black, singing in concert with them. Never seen a video clip. Never heard an audio clip. Would love to have seen what Dale sounds like with them, but I've never heard, and nobody's ever heard, if there's anything out there, even bootlegs. Michael went on to do a solo stuff, did a solo career. The band phased out, and they didn't do anything really without him after that. Record label released a Can't Stop the Rock. It's basically a best of, but then there's one or two songs on here that could technically be Michael's solo albums, but they're not really Stryper songs. They don't sound like it. They're just kind of mellow. Then, let's see. Later on, 7, the best of Stryper. Now, this is when Stryper, Michael Sweet came back, 2003. And there was talks of a reunion and all that stuff. So 2003, this comes out. So it's the best of Stryper, and there's 2 brand new Stryper songs on here. And let's see, this album starts with songs from Against the Law and goes all the way back. So they included Against the Law in here. But it has 2 new songs, so it's like, yes, new Stryper material. Then the band did a 7 weeks Live in America tour, and I actually got to see them during this 2003 tour. I don't know if any of these songs were recorded there, but the band was back together, all 4 original members. During one, I didn't even mention it, but during the one phase, during To Hell with the Devil, Tim Gaines left the band, and they got another bass player in. He was in all the promo pictures and everything, but then when the album came out, Tim came back. They put his pictures in the album. I think he didn't play on the album, though, but he was back in the band, so he was out for a little while and came back. Now it's all 4 original members from the band, and they did this tour, and I saw that. So then the discussion was whether there's also, and then there was a live album that came out. But that was about it as far as new music. We weren't sure if there was ever, was there talk about actually having a real full Stryper album. Well, in 2005 we got it with the album Reborn. Now this is a clear vinyl. It's a poster. It's clear vinyl package, and I got it in 2 bags. But this folds out to be all 4 guys poster. This cover again was a little too much for Christian market, so they put like a cover over it or something and changed it. There's another version out there. It's just got a logo. What this was, though, is Michael Sweet was recording, or had started to record, a new solo album. The idea of a Stryper reunion was in the wind, and somebody suggested, the story goes from what I've heard, somebody suggested, Michael, why don't you make this a Stryper album? So all the songs were written, demoed. He basically sent it to all the guys. They were living in all different places. Some were in Vegas, California. Michael's way over Massachusetts. Sent it to them, and the album was recorded long distance. The band was not together. And they basically recorded the parts for what was essentially a Michael Sweet solo album. It's got a non-Stryper sound, a little more of a 90s, early 2000s alternative rock sound. Got some good songs on here, but most people kind of gloss over this as not really being necessarily, a Stryper album. But this was the first album they came back after the 2 new songs, which did sound pretty good, Stryper sounding. This album came out. It's a great album. It's just, again, if you compare it to the Stryper sound in the catalog, it wasn't really there. That's what the cover looks like with all 4 of the guys on there. And then, like I said, the version that came out in the market just had a thing that said Stryper Reborn on it. Let me see. Yeah, it's not in there. Anyway, then let's see, we jump ahead. So then they came out with Murder by Pride. I don't have this on vinyl. I don't think it's... Oh, this was only released on vinyl as a picture disc, and it's expensive, and I didn't buy it, and not a big fan of picture discs. This is still a little bit of a less Stryper sound, a little bit like Reborn, but you can start to feel the Stryper-esque sound starting to come back. They do a cover of Peace of Mind by Boston. I can't remember if it was, I think it was after this, but somewhere around this time, Michael Sweet was asked to join Boston. I guess their singer had passed, and he sang with them on quite a few shows because he has a real high voice and can do all that stuff. So they do a cover tune of Peace of Mind on here. This is a really good album. I really like this, but again, if you're thinking that Stryper sound, that early albums, this was not really one that the fans were like, that sounds like Stryper. They came out with the live album, live in Puerto Rico. This is also on DVD. So then, Stryper go into the studio, and they bring out Second Coming. Gotta say, I'm not a fan of this picture. Everybody looks bleached out and white. Tim looks like a vampire. It's just not a great picture, not a great cover in my opinion. It's on yellow vinyl. It's double vinyl. What they did is they went in and re-recorded with today's modern standard equipment, re-recorded songs from the first 3 albums, and which would have been the Yellow and Black Attack, Soldier Under Command, and To Hell with the Devil. So it's kind of a best of, recorded in modern day equipment and times, so it's updated. They stayed pretty true to the original versions. They didn't change a lot. You can hear every once in a while a difference here and there. Robert plays the drums a little different here and there, but overall it's really much like the first few albums. So they stay pretty close to the original. So this was great stuff. It's it's a re-record, which a lot of bands do. So it's not new material, even though although there was a couple new songs on here too. The new songs still didn't quite have that Stryper feel. But they have Blackened and Bleeding from the Inside Out. Again, they still kind of felt a little Michael solo stuff. I just don't know. I don't like the photo shots from this tour. They all look kind of too white. The band just looks washed out. Just seems kind of, yeah. Another live album, Live at the Whiskey A Go-Go. Double live album. This was released on vinyl, and oh my gosh, I almost had my hands on a copy of it like 3 or 4 or 5, 6 months ago for $50. You can't hardly touch a copy of the vinyl now. It's on blue vinyl, limited edition, and it goes for $300, $250, $300. And so, anyway, then because Stryper, I don't know because anything, but Stryper decided to do an album dedicated to the bands that influenced them when they were growing up. So they did a covers album. It's called The Covering. And they pretty much, from what Michael was telling me, they recorded this when they were in the studio with Second Coming. So they were doing both albums pretty much around the same time frame. This is a album of cover tunes of covering songs of bands that they grew up with that were influential to them in the music. So we have everything from Saxon to Scorpions, Black Sabbath, UFO, Kansas, Deep Purple, Kiss, Ozzy, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Van Halen, Led Zeppelin, and then they have one new song on here by Stryper called God, and this is starting to regain that Stryper-esque sound when you hear that new song. So they got Set Me Free, Blackout, Heaven and Hell, Lights Out, Carry On My Wayward Son, Highway Star, Shout It Out Loud, Over the Mountain, The Trooper, Breaking the Law, On Fire, and Immigrant Song. Amazing album. Most people complain, yeah, it's not a Christian album, but this is bands that influenced them, done Stryper style, and these sound like Stryper doing these songs. Great, great album. I don't think this was ever released on vinyl. I've never seen it, never heard of it being released on vinyl, but I would love to have it if they did. Then, one of the only other albums I don't have that is on vinyl that I don't have on vinyl is No More Hell to Pay. Now, let me see. Let me get the dates right here on this. No More Hell to Pay, 2013. Actually, this is around the same time as The Second Coming, too. So I guess they were doing... Yeah, that's right. I talked to him back then during that, and they were doing all that in the studio. They did Second Coming, No More Hell to Pay. The covering was actually done a couple years earlier. That's what I was confused. The covering was in 2011, and so they were in the studio doing Second Coming and No More Hell to Pay pretty much at the same time. This, I don't have this on vinyl. It is available on vinyl. I think it's blue and some other color. Maybe is it blue, maybe black, maybe it's just blue. Again, I almost had a copy of that at one time, but now it goes for outrageous prices. I'm hoping to one day run across a copy for $50 or less. This was, to most fans, a return to the original Stryper sound. It's got the dual guitar attacks. It's got the... Everything just feels like a Stryper album. So this became like the real... To most people, became a real return to Stryper. So this album has been marked as just being one of the best that they've come out with in modern times. It's got the same Stryper sound. The guys haven't lost anything. Everything is still there. The musicianship, the vocals, everything's amazing. If you see this on vinyl out there, No More How to Pay, and you find a copy of this vinyl and it's $50, under $75, buy it. I'll pay you back. I promise. Okay, anyway, following that one was Fallen. Now this one I do have on vinyl. I forget what color it is. This one I think is 2015. It might be black because the colored vinyls tend to go for a little more. I have it on CD also. This was released on Frontier, so they crossed over to that label. Frontier Records is one of those labels with almost any band on that label I think I'm going to enjoy. They've got that, they go for those bands that have that melodic metal sound. Anyway, another one sounds very reminiscent of No More Hell to Pay. So these two albums really could be brothers. There's not a whole lot of difference, even the song structures, the way that the album's laid out. Just a solid, great album. Limited to 1,554 copies worldwide. So this again is another album that is high on the charts of Stryper because it's for Stryper fans because it sounds just like classic Stryper but more modernized. Great stuff. And that brings us to the most recent and so far the last album. We hope to get a new one. This one just came out like this year, and that is Goddamn Evil. Play on words because they want God to damn the evil of the world. So you've got this Neptune-looking character. I only say Neptune-looking character because we live here on the beach in Virginia Beach, and there's a King Neptune statue down at the beach, and I swear he looks just like that. He's holding a trident. This looks like King Neptune. He's got the same. It looks like they took the King Neptune statue and put it on here. Love the artwork though. I mean, it's so cool looking. The album itself, I splurged a little. I couldn't get the gold vinyl. It literally sold out in like 5 minutes. As soon as I got the email saying you can now pre-order the album, I went to the website. Gold album sold out. So I had to settle for the silver, though it's technically just like gray, the silver edition, which was a little more costly than the black. But I wanted to go ahead and get a somewhat, collector edition. It's a gatefold, but there's not much in there to see. Again, Very similar to the last two albums. Really, you could think of these as almost like a trilogy. The last three albums have pretty much the same sound. Some people say that's a bad thing. I think it's a consistent thing. Stryper found the sound that they had back in the 80s. For the most part, it's modernized, but it's still, you hear this and you say, okay, that's Stryper. The other albums you say, oh, okay, that's Michael Sweet solo. I'm not going to show his solo albums. He got a lot of solo albums too, and they're amazing, but this is a Stryper video. So this is the latest album. This just came out a few months ago, early this year. This is when I talked to Michael when this album came out, did an interview, and that's when I asked him about some of the stuff in the past. So anyway, Stryper has been for me a pivotal band that I've liked throughout the years. You know, we didn't hear from them much between 90 and when they got back together in 2003. Michael Sweet put out quite a few albums in there, kept up with that. Robert Sweet had a solo album. He's a drummer. It had the singer from Fear Not. So it was weird. Robert played guitar and drums and stuff. It wasn't much to really say much about that. Oz Fox and Tim Gaines had a kind of put out some demos, and then they released them on a CD called Sin Dizzy was the name of the band. They put out a CD that had like 2 different demos, about 10 or 12 tracks that were made up from 2 different demos they recorded, I guess. Oz was singing, had a little different sound. He sings for Stryper, but he doesn't sing lead. He sings a backup. So anyway, it was pretty good, but you know, they were more of a local band, I guess. It just happened to record some stuff. So anyway, it was all silent in that camp until they finally got back together. So yes, Stryper, one of my favorite bands still. Have met them a handful of times in concerts, usually stuck around backstage. Actually, I met them in the 80s. I don't think when we saw them here, 2003. We met Robert and Oz. They came out and talked to us. We were there early. Anyway, that's about it for now. This has probably went on longer than I wanted, but Stryper, one of my favorite bands. I have a lot of stuff by them. I collect stuff by them, and I appreciate them and what they do. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Rock on.